Hi guys, I'm Steph.
And I'm Richard. Today's question comes from Melanie Chandon. I'm currently starting college and I just feel like my life needs to be in South Korea. Do you have any advice for a Westerner who deeply wants to live in SK? Heart. Advice for a Westerner who wants to live in South Korea.
Get a degree.
Well, there's a lot of bits of advice we could give, right? Degree is definitely one of them. First, let's tell them where we are.
We are currently in Pennsylvania.
Angry Birds!
Angry Birds.
Chucky and the triplets.
Ooh, you remembered.
What do you think is the most popular way somebody comes to live in Korea?
Personally, I think the most popular way that somebody comes to live in Korea, especially from Western countries like us, is teaching.
Teaching, yeah. I think probably teaching one and becoming a student, international student studying abroad would be two. There's also a lot of business jobs there as well, and so you could get a job at like Samsung or some company. If you have an engineering degree or if you have any sort of degree that fits what a Korean company might be looking for, you get a visa in order to live in Korea doing that as well.
But you need a degree.
But you need a degree, yeah. Coming over, the only other way would be to start your own business. It's really expensive to start your own business in South Korea if you don't have Korean citizenship.
Exactly.
If you want to come to Korea to live and you want to do that through teaching English or some sort of teaching job, what sort of advice would you give?
One thing I would do is start looking into different career websites. I was just told that Craigslist is a great one and that they always have advertisements for teaching jobs in Korea. I think I actually went through Eclipse, but it's important to research the company that you're working through. Is it a reputable company? Think about where do you want to live? Where are you teaching? Are you teaching
geographically?
Geographically.
Right.
Are you teaching in Seoul? Are you teaching out in the countryside? Before I came to Korea, I actually looked at the map and was like, well, I had a choice. Do I want to live in the countryside? Do I want to live somewhere urban? Or do I want to live in like a suburb community? And so I looked at the map and I was like, Seoul's like New York City. I'm a country girl. I'm not ready for that yet. I'll choose the suburb.
Would you say Suwon is sort of a suburb of Seoul?
Suwon is sort of a suburb of Seoul.
It's weird, I don't know.
It's a city in its own right.
It is. If you know anything, for example, if you're familiar with the United States and the city of LA and then all the cities that sort of surround LA, those aren't suburbs. Anaheim, Pasadena, Irvine, the Orange County, what else do they got there? They got Hollywood and yeah, I mean Long Beach. These are all cities around the city of LA, and that's kind of how Seoul and all of the surrounding cities are. Suwon is a city, yet it's also a suburb.
Yes.
And then you ended up getting a job teaching outside of Suwon a little bit. It was about a 15 to 20 minute car ride from our house, but you would consider that more in the countryside?
I would definitely consider that in the countryside because there was cows and chickens and pigs, and there was, unless you had a car, there was no direct transportation to Seoul.
And what was it like to teach out there? Did you know anybody that lived out there, and what did they say about living sort of in the countryside in Korea?
Most of them got cars or scooters or motorcycles so that they could go into the city. It was
that's kind of like not what people are really expecting to do when they come over here in the first place. They're not really expecting, oh, I gotta buy a car in Korea.
It's not something that you actually should necessarily need to do, but if you want to live out in the countryside, it's definitely something that you probably would find yourself in a situation where you would end up doing that because it's not convenient.
I once met a guy a long time ago that had come to live in Seoul that was living in the countryside for a couple of years teaching English in a really, really small town where he was the only foreigner. And he said that it was totally different between countryside and city. And the main difference was nobody spoke any English at all in the countryside, and he was forced to learn Korean. And so because he spent 2 years there, his Korean was almost fluent. And that's totally not what happens to a lot of English teachers that end up going to live in Seoul, unless of course there's some extenuating circumstance like they date someone who's a Korean, or they just take intensive classes every day and they make that their only real goal instead of say traveling or getting to know the country. I think the biggie, if you want to come to live in Korea and you don't want to be an English teacher, say you just want to get yourself a regular job, is to understand Korean corporate culture or Korean working culture. This is a huge difference between Western and Korean culture that even Koreans sort of don't necessarily like, because it ends up putting undue stress and pressure and more responsibility on the average employee than the average employee might have in a Western country.
Yes.
One of the funniest things I've heard that Korean employees have to do is they cannot go home at night until the boss goes home. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That's right. They have to wait until the boss goes home. So every night, right around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whenever they're supposed to go home, they're on the computer, they're minding their own business, they're looking really busy whether they are or not, and they're eyeing the boss's office. And as soon as the boss gets up and packs and goes, then everybody can leave. But nobody's allowed to leave until the boss leaves.
Really?
That's what I've heard.
Oh my goodness. I'd be in trouble because my boss liked to sleep at his desk. So that's why everybody gets out of work late.
Well, I can tell you this, the Westerners that I've spoken to that work at Korean companies in general dislike the culture at a Korean company because it really is top down and it's not as innovative as say a Western country might be. It isn't as if, for example, the boss is listening to the employee when the employee has a good idea. The boss is sort of there to oversee everything, and it's the kind of Confucius society style of running a business.
Actually, that makes sense because I have a friend, Korean friend, but a friend who works for Samsung actually, and she tried in Korea, and she tried to make a suggestion and it was completely ignored and shut down, and she came and called me up and was like, let's do lunch, I want to complain.
Oh, she wanted to just get it off her chest.
Yeah, they do that. Everybody does that. Another way a lot of people come to Korea to live is as an international student.
That's right. Actually, I have a lot of experience with this as well because I've taught a bunch of kids that are not Korean in my classes that have come for either 1 semester or for 4 years. That seems to be the two sort of opportunities that kids have. The kids that come for 1 semester really have a good experience because they live in the dormitory and they get a taste for everything. They get to go to Seoul, they get to travel around, they also get to have classes in Korean and English possibly. It's sort of, it depends on the program they're in. And the feedback that I've heard from them is really positive.
Yeah, I actually had a former coworker who was a guy who went to an all-girls school for a semester and loved it, loved Korea, and decided to come back as a teacher.
Yeah, how the heck did he do that?
I don't know. I don't know how a guy went to an all-girls school, but it's pretty cool. I don't know many guys who wouldn't want to go to an all-girls school.
But another option that really should be looked into if you're looking to live in Korea and you're a young person is the 4-year program for studying in Korea. And at least at the university where I work, and I bet that a lot of universities are like this because it's a Korean government program that they have to enter into before they start studying, which is a 10-month Korean language intensive program where they have to study 4 to 6 hours of Korean language every day for 5 days a week. And they gotta pass up to 6 levels of testing Korean language certification before they are allowed to start studying their liberal arts and their major classes. I've seen these kids, they really end up becoming immersed more than anyone else. When I say kids, they're young adults. They're between the ages of 18 and 25. But they know how to speak Korean better than any of the other foreigners that live in Korea. Bless you. Double blessed.
They really do. They really do speak Korean language better than anybody that I've met.
There are in fact other opportunities to come and live in Korea other than teaching, becoming a student, or working at a corporate job, but they're really hard to come by. You gotta be really motivated. They're sort of unique opportunities.
We've met musicians, actors, photographers, makeup artists, singers, rappers.
Entertainers, right. There are people who come over to Korea to live and to be some sort of entertainer or model that they don't really fit the mold of a typical teaching or student or corporate job. We have a friend, for example, a good friend of ours, we'll say his name, Jesse Day, who's a Canadian who came over to Korea. When he got here, his Korean wasn't very good, but he slowly learned Korean language. He's been here a few years now. How long has he been here?
I have no idea.
How come we don't know how long you've been here, Jesse?
I don't know how long.
It's been several years now, but his Korean language has gotten really good and he's kind of become more well-known. He's become more popular as the days go by. And he does know Korean language well enough now to go on TV and speak Korean. He actually did one of his first interviews recently I saw on Facebook, where he's going on a talk show, that's what it was. And you know, I mean, you know Korean language and you have some sort of talent like that, that can be a really good way to try and live in Korea as a non-sort of traditional working person. In Korea, you still get the feeling that these are still the good days. We're still on the upward trend. And that's a good feeling for people like us who do this, and for other people who are sort of artists and musicians, and as well as anyone who just wants to make a good living and provide for their family.
It's just getting away from your family, getting away from everything, and just figuring out yourself and what you want to do, who you want to be, and like becoming that.
I think living in Korea is easier than most people think because at this point with the internet you have Skype, you have Facebook, you have all these sorts of tools to communicate with your family back home. People ask me, do you miss your father, do you miss your mother? I do, but I Skype with them about once a week and sometimes more often, and they're right there in front of my computer screen, and it's not exactly the same, but it's as close it could possibly be to me hanging out with them in their kitchen.
Well, it's almost like living in another state because you gotta take an airplane to go visit and it's expensive, but you're still there. You can still talk to them on the internet.
We're just taking an airplane a little bit further away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's it for today's Life in Korea.
If you have a question that you'd like us to attempt to answer, go ahead and write it in the comment section below, or you can head to our blog and write it there, or head to facebook.com/HallyuBack and leave us a note on our wall.
And like this video, add it to your favorites, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more drama
and Life in Korea videos. That's it for today's Life in Korea experience. 1, 2, 3. Wave, say hi.
Hi.
It's actually his Angry Bird stuff. You like Angry Birds?
Yeah.
You're an Angry Bird fanatic.
Who's this?
Blackbird.
Haha! Oh, careful. There's a glass of water down there.
Excuse me.